Welcome to FixItForgetIt.com, where projects and ideas come together.
Hi, this is John from FixItForgetIt.com. Winter's on us again, and we wanted to make up some feral cat shelters. These have reflective insulation in them. It's a 2-box system. So we have a inside box with the lid. We put straw in here to further insulate the boxes, and an outside top. These have an awning. Everything is real smooth the way we make these, so you don't have to tape the openings. We'll show you how we do that. Has a little windscreen here, or a little door, to help keep some of the weather off the animal. The little awning also helps keep rain and snow from coming in on them. These boxes may not be for everyone. They're not the cheapest box, but it makes a nice looking box, especially if you're going to have it up around your house. And it's very durable, should last a long time. If you make 3 of these, which we did, it will cost about $35 per box. If you make 1, it'll cost about $45 per box. I will show you the materials necessary both ways, and we'll show you step by step how we made these. All of the cut sizes, everything will be in the video. So we just wanted to let you know up front that these may not be for everyone, but if you want a nice looking box that's very durable with a little awning on there that should be pretty warm for the animal, maybe this will be for you. So we'll show you how we made these, and we'll get going. Let's have a look at the materials we need for this feral cat shelter project. This is a Sterilite 18-gallon storage tub. This one is a Sterilite 30-gallon storage tub. I got gray because our vinyl siding on the house is gray. It'll coordinate nicely with that. They come in, I think, a couple of other colors. You can see what you like. You'll also need some duct tape, a Sharpie pen, and a grease or wax pencil, and a 25-foot roll of Reflectix, and this is staple tab insulation. There are no staples in it or anything, that's just what they call it. And this is a reflective insulation that will reflect the critters' body heat back to them. So we'll now have a look at the tools we need for this project. These are the tools I used on this project: headlamp, hairdryer, multifunction tool, and I put on the multifunction tool this round fine tooth blade and use that for cutting the door, and this small sanding head with 120 grit sandpaper to sand the opening and the little door that will eventually become the awning for this cat shelter. Drill motor with an 1/8 inch drill bit to drill the holes in the corner of the door before we cut it, a clamp, a pair of scissors, a couple of framing squares, a Sharpie, a wax pencil, razor knife, make sure you have a new blade in your razor knife, and a tape measure. So these are the tools I used on this project. I will also show you a less expensive setup in case you don't have these tools on hand or don't want to buy these. Your setup can be as simple as this. You can just pick up a hacksaw blade with one of these handles. If you don't have a handle or don't want to pick one up, you can just wind the end of the hacksaw blade with duct tape. That'll work fine. Get a sanding block, some 100 or 150 grit sandpaper. If you don't have or don't want to pick up a sanding block, you can just use a little block of wood, wrap the sandpaper on it and hold it on there or staple it on there. That'll work fine. Or you could simply fold the sandpaper and just hold it in your hand and use it that way. You want a drill motor. If you're going to use this setup, you want a 1/2 inch drill bit to drill 4 holes in the corners of the door so that you can get that hacksaw blade down in those holes, and you'll be cutting 3 sides of the doorway with the hacksaw blade. You want a razor knife, a hair dryer, a pair of scissors, a tape measure, and a ruler. And if you don't have a ruler, you can just run out to Home Depot, pick up a paint stick. It'll have a ruler right on there. So this should be a pretty affordable setup. Many people will have a lot of these tools around already. You may be able to think of ways to scale this down and make it even less expensive. I'm going to be using the power tools and things I showed you earlier because I do a lot of my own projects and I have many of those tools on hand. I'm going to be making 3 of these feral cat shelters, and I want to make them as quickly and efficiently as possible. So I'll be using those tools. I'll try to remember as I go along to show you points in the project where these less expensive tools can be used so that you'll know when to employ those instead of the power tools. And we will get going on this project now, and I will show you how to put this together. Okay, let's have a look at the cut sizes for the insulation for this cat shelter. I like to use a Sharpie to mark the insulation. It shows up nicely. A grease pencil doesn't show up very well on the insulation. On the other hand, grease pencil works great on the wall of the box, shows up nicely, and it's easy to wipe off and clean up when you're done. The top piece, you're going to need one 12-inch by 16-inch cut. This material comes in a 16-inch tall roll by 25 feet long. With the cuts that I'm going to show you, you'll be able to do 3 full boxes with a 25-foot roll of insulation, and you should have a little over 3 feet left over. For this first cut, for the top, you want to come 12 inches over, make your cut, the stock 16-inch height. Then, for the sides, you're going to need 2 14 by 16-inch cuts. For those, again, you'll just lay them, run them out this way, 14 inches by the stock 16 inches. You'll need 2 cuts for the ends, 20 inches by 14 inches. For these, you'll run these with the 20 inches going down the roll, and then you'll just trim it down to 14 inches. For the bottom, you're going to need one 18-inch by 14-inch piece. Again, you'll run that down the length of the roll, trim it down to 14. Once you get your 18-inch by 14-inch rectangle cut out for the bottom, we want to make some modifications to it. It'll make it easier to sort of upholster this down into the bottom of the box. First thing you want to do is just come from the outside corner on the short ends and come up 3.5 inches, strike a little line 1 inch back. Do the same thing on all 4 corners. Then you want to strike another little hash mark 1.5 inches up from the corner and 1.5 inches over from the corner. Do the same thing on all 4 corners. Once you've done that, you just nip the 4 corners and just come in and make a little relief cut, little snip on all 4 of those little 1 inch marks. that will let this sort of fold up, and the corners will round into the bottom of the box nicely. And I'll show you how all that works as we move forward. First thing we want to do as we start putting this cat shelter together is take these little shims you made up. These are about 4 inches by 8 inches by 1 inch thick. Just lay those in the bottom of the large tub. This is just going to raise the small inside tub up an inch, and that will allow for us to have a little space down here to put some straw that will help insulate the bottom of these tubs. These will be taken out once we're done, and then the straw put down. But we need to have these here so that we make sure that we get the proper positioning for this little inside tub as we cut the door for the inside tub. So we want to make sure that the doors line up. As we get started, you want to come over, and from the inside of this outside tub and the outside of the inside tub, you want to have a space of about 3 inches on each side. Get that centered. Once you do that, just take your Sharpie, make a little locating mark on the inside and outside tub. Doesn't have to be exact, just somewhere in the middle. So once this is centered, you can kind of mark that around the middle wherever you'd like. We're going to use those locating marks from time to time during this project. Now, we want to make sure that we have this door as far to the right as possible. This bottom right-hand corner, way over. The reason we want to do that is we want as much room on the left for the cat to have a warm space to sleep and stay warm and dry. The thing we have to be careful of is if you're not careful where you put this, you could wind up being too far to the right on this inside tub. So if we put this framing square down in here, you kind of get the idea. You can only go so far this way before you start turning that corner, and we want to make sure we don't get over too far. So you'll see a little wax pencil mark right there. If you take a framing square and just kind of line up the edges on the outer lip of this outside tub, and then come over 7 inches, and then just take your grease pencil, make a little mark there. That's going to work out rather nicely and put that door just about where you'd like it to be. If you don't have a framing square, you can just sort of measure out from the edge, come over about 7 inches. If we come down and line the top of this framing square up with that little grease pencil mark, we can then just strike a line over here on the right side of that framing square. That is 6 inches long. And then I came over from that 5.5 inches, and you strike another 6-inch line. Then you come up from the bottom 6 inches, you strike a line, you come up from that 6 inches for a total of 12 inches from ground level, and strike your top line. That will give us a 5.5 inch by 6 inch opening, and it's a little taller because that will allow for the swing out of a little hinge for the canopy here. Because I'm going to be using power tools, I'm drilling a 1/8 inch hole in all 4 corners. We also will be looking at a less expensive option where you can just use a hacksaw blade. If you go that route, you would want to use a 1/2 inch drill bit, and I would come inboard a little bit as I drill the hole like that instead of right tight in the corner, so that the hole doesn't wind up going outside the door. So you want to kind of drill more in here, then you would get that hacksaw blade in and go down. So this will help us get this thing all lined up properly and make it so that we can have the inside and outside boxes straight through. Once we get this outside door cut, we will then bend that canopy up, trace around the opening to telegraph that line back to the interior box, then we'll cut the inside box out. We're going to cut this opening out now. I'm using this multi-function tool. It has a little fine-tooth round blade on here. This is made for wood, plastics, softer materials. This is a variable speed tool. You want to have this up as high as it will go. And we're going to start in the center, go up and back, then to do this side, then come over and grab the bottom. And that's a fast, easy way to cut your door. I just took a paper towel and sloughed off some of that from sawing the opening and just kind of pushed it down inside the tub. Now we're going to bend this little awning so that it comes out. Just use a hairdryer for that. You want to make sure you have a glove. And just raise up on it a little bit and put your hairdryer on high and start heating it up. And just hold it there for a little bit. Let it cool down. As you're bending this, instead of just simply pushing upward, once it starts to soften and come up a bit, kind of do like a little pinching motion, you know, like that, to achieve a bit of a crease in there. And kind of watch it that you don't get a bubble or something in here. You know, try to keep that flat as it cools. And then I'll just keep holding this here for a little bit. We'll let that cool down. Then we'll come back and have a look at sanding these edges up. When you're
sloughing off the excess material around here with a paper towel and pushing it down inside. Be careful, because at that point this thing is pretty sharp and it might bite you, so just want to be aware of that. Having a little trouble getting this to form properly, you can also just come inside and warm it a little bit on the inside. Right along here and down under. And if it winds up coming up too high, you can just warm it and soften it and lower it a bit. We're going to sand this down now. We talked about less expensive options. If you don't have one of these multi-function tools, you can just use sandpaper and a sanding block, or just the sandpaper. But with these multi-purpose tools, when it comes to the sanding, you want to put it at half power. For this tool, full power is 6, half power is 3. You want to go at this kind of gently. This stuff will sand down pretty quickly. And we're going to kind of hit these edges and then roll back in and then come back under here like this. Sort of just beep these corners a little bit. As you can see already, you know, that's getting smooth. I'll continue to work on this, but already that is nice and smooth. That would not hurt any kind of critter going in or out of there. I'm going to show you just a little bit of this on the inside. Smooth, pretty smooth already. So you just keep working on it like that. Go around the inside and the outside of this. Get that all sanded up and you'll be good to go. If your sanding pad starts to gunk up a bit, if you have a brass brush, you can just sort of brush it with a brass brush. That'll clean it up again. I'm using a 120 grit sanding pad on this. When you start doing the inside of this opening, you may want to kick this little sanding head at a bit of an angle like that. That can help you as you come down in here and start getting these angles. As I finish this opening, I just buffed all around there a little bit with some 150 grit sandpaper just to do a little final cleanup. As you can see, this is how everything turned out. Hole is nice and smooth now. No one's going to get hurt or cut. That makes a little awning on there for the critters. Kind of keep the wind and the rain and some of the breeze and snow out of there. This is the inside of the opening. You want to make sure that once you have this all sanded and cut and cleaned up, that you vacuum, wipe it all out real good in here. That's especially important on the inside tub because we're going to be taping insulation in there, and we want to make sure that all that tape sticks. So that's how you cut and sand the opening. Now we're going to trace the opening on the inside box. I have the 2 shims, the 1-inch shims, down in the bottom of the big box. I then sat the little inside box on top of those shims. I lined up the locating marks that we identified earlier, and I just put this little clamp on here to hold these 2 boxes together. If you don't have a clamp, you can just put some duct tape around there. Just want to make sure that this doesn't shift or move on you. Then we're just going to come in here and straight out. I'm going to trace that. Then I will just measure up from this bottom line 6 inches, strike a line across the top. Now we have the hole traced on the inside box. As you can see, the way we positioned this, that brings that over this way just about as far as you can go before you start rounding this corner. You also want to make sure that you keep these up a ways, and the measurements we have set up here will achieve that. That will keep any flooding or snow, anything like that that kind of builds up in the area. That'll protect it from getting inside the shelter. And we have our 4 1/8-inch holes drilled in the corners, getting ready to cut this out. We will get that going for you right now. Okay, we have the power setting on our multifunction tool all the way up again. On this inside box, we're going to cut all 4 sides. That's it. Then we'll just slough this off with a paper towel, sand it as before. That'll do it. We have the hole on the inside box finished. Nice and smooth. That won't cut. We have our shims down on the bottom of the outside box. I'm going to put this in here and line that locating mark up. And then I'm going to check things out. And right there we are. We're lined up perfectly. Critter will be able to go right in there. So that's working out well. Now we just need to put the insulation on the inside box and then stuff straw between the 2 boxes. And you do want to use straw, not hay. As we start putting this reflective insulation in, we want to install these end panels first. As you can see, I just use little bits of duct tape, little tabs, and sort of tack it in place. I like this cheap duct tape because it's very pliable and it wraps rather nicely. Thing is, when you try to tear tabs off, they just kind of shred. So you may want to make your tabs up like this. Just snip these, stick them on the side up here. So when we put these end panels in, you want to make sure you push it all the way down nice and snug. And I kind of eyeball it, and I try to get these corners sort of lined up with this little corner of that raised section at the bottom of this tub. And once you think you have that somewhat centered, just take one of your tabs, tack that down, then kind of push this in. You don't want to have it over like this, kind of snug it down like that. Put a tab on there. Same thing over here. And push this back in the corner. Put a tab on. Snug this down into this corner here. Put a tab on. Do the same thing on both sides. And that tacks it in place so that we can continue working. Now you want to bring this around like this. And as you can see, this is the inside tub. And you've got this little bit sticking out here. Just take your razor knife. Make sure you have a new razor blade in there. Be very careful. Watch your fingers. You don't want to get cut. Come in, trim that down, trim this back, trim that over. Just get that all out of there, like that. And then we're going to put in these side panels. We have a side panel in. I'm going to put this other one in. Make sure you're pushed all the way down. Make sure you're all the way over. Get these corners lined up. And just take one of your tabs, put it down there. And you just keep on going around, fastening everything down. Steady as you go. Here I kind of get over both pieces of insulation and tack it to the bottom. Same over here. Now you're going to see that this corner on this end panel comes up quite high. You want to have a little room up here to make sure that your duct tape has some of this plastic to hang on to. So just take your scissors, get over next to this edge, and just trim that straight over. Now you see you have a little room to get some tape on there, and we'll do the same thing over here. If I can do this left-handed. All right. Now, when we come up here, we have a little room to grab the plastic. Okay, we have the bottom panel in now. As you recall, we nipped these corners so that it would contour coming around the corners. We put a little relief cut on each side here so that this would pull up. So just push everything back, start tacking it down. continue tacking it right around the perimeter. And then we just want to roll these little tabs down where we put the relief cut and tack those. And you will find that as you do these corners, instead of taking a longer piece of tape and trying to go in like this and wrap the corner that way, you're better to take it just the tape width and run it down like this. Otherwise, it seems like it kind of bunches up. So if you make 2 or 3 passes, like that, and just bring another one over right next to it. Just keep running those strips right around the corner that way, and you maybe another one continue on around here, and then we can start taking longer strips, putting them on here, and start to close this whole thing up. Next, you want to come over to the door and just take your Sharpie and trace right around that door opening. And you will see why we do that here in a second. We're then going to cut this door out. Make sure you have a sharp new blade. Be careful you don't poke or cut your fingers. Just bring that right straight down. Come over here and come down. Make sure that all the corners are totally free before you push backwards so that you don't tear it or anything. So we now have our little doorway or windscreen so that that is cut open. Then we're going to bring this up and you just put something on there to hold it. We want to make sure that we trim this back a little bit so that there's room for this to swing, because when these two tubs get together, this will hang up if we don't make a little bit of leeway here. And what we want to do is just come over 1/4 of an inch over here, come over 1/4 of an inch, and we're going to come up from the bottom about 1/4 of an inch, And if your door starts to hang up later on, you can always trim this up a little more. Now, we're just going to take a little ruler and if I can hold this thing in place. Just draw a line across here. We're going to come right up to the top here, kind of at 0, and come over here to our 1/4 inch mark. Just draw your line up. Same thing on this side. Just get down here in your 1/4 inch mark. Go right up tight on the top. Draw a line. Then we'll cut this off. Trim both sides back. And we'll cut the bottom off. Tape on there, which will be fine, because what we're going to do is we're going to take duct tape now, and we're going to wrap both sides with duct tape and the bottom. Then we're going to come in and put some duct tape on the inside of the foil here and wrap it right around to the outside, and I'll show you how that looks in just a bit. Now we have the door taped up and the perimeter is taped inside and out. That will secure this insulation so that it doesn't come loose. Okay, we have the door finished. Everything's tacked in place. We can now start closing up all of these seams. You can just take a full piece and do these sides. Connect the side panels to the ends. But I do want to show you, when it comes to going around the bottom down in here and along the top, instead of trying to do a full pass, sometimes it'll kind of ball up on you if you do that, especially down here in the bottom, because this tape really grabs that foil. So just take a look, like a half pass, fold the tape against itself, bring it down, set it up close, tack it a little bit, and then bring it on up from there, and you'll find that that will go on much more smoothly. We're just going to come up real quick, do the same thing up here on top. Want to come up nicely onto the plastic here, grab that, crease it back in there, and then roll it down. And if you continue around like that, should go smoothly. I have this little hump taped up here, and I'm going to show you how I do that. You just take your scissors and snip a little relief cut kind of right in the center of this angle on both sides. So I have a relief cut there on both sides. Then put your tape on this flap, and we're going to bring this down and push it snug all the way back that way, and then tape that on. Then we'll come here and put a piece of tape and snug it way down. Same thing over on this side. Put that tab on there, make sure you get it way back down in. That's how you can tape that flap up. We have the inner tub and the outer tub. Everything's looking good. We have the roof insulated for the inner tub. Let's put that on. Let's pop this outer tub on here. And once I get those shims out of there and get the straw in, that'll snap down. We're also going to put bungee cords on the top of this just for security. Make sure nothing can get the lid off and get the critter. And little door is working great. So it's coming together nicely. Okay, we're ready to put the straw in these boxes. And again, you want to make sure it's straw, not hay. They say one way you can remember that is straw for strays. We have some nice little bed of straw up about to the, just above the bottom of the little door. We have some down in the bottom of the big box. I put these in and slide it all the way over. Start stuffing some down in here. Unfortunately, can't really get as much straw down in here as I'd like to. It'd be nice if this outer box were a little bigger. Then I snug that up. You got your locating mark here again, so you can find the center that we've been using. You want to pack this in there so you get some insulation, but you don't want to pack it too tight. If it gets too tight, it'll actually start to lose its insulating factor. And I just pry this up here, stuff a little down in. You can also just take a little stick and tamp it down a bit. starting to get pretty cold out here. We have two beautiful little baby possums out on our back porch right now, eating some dog kibble we put out there for them. Really cute little things. We have some huge possums that have been coming up at night, and a couple of those big possums have been getting in these shelters already. We have a couple of them out there, getting ready to put two more out. We can just keep stuffing this down in here. Doesn't matter if it gets in that doorway, we'll just push that through. We're going to have to put a bungee cord on the top of this to keep that lid on there. A little bit more over here. There's that insulated inside lid. Get that on there. If you wind up having a situation where this little door won't swing easily, so we're just going to push that in and open it up. But if this little windscreen that you made doesn't swing easily, you just push that straw to the sides and down and over. And you always have the option, if you have to trim it a little bit, retrim it. But we start these out. We actually put a rubber band around to hold that little door up until they get used to going in and out. Then we let it down. We'll tidy that up more in a bit. But we would just want to finish this up here. Now this is the downside of this setup. About the only place you have for a little straw is this divot here. You really can't get much on the top of this, unfortunately. Just not enough room. But we go ahead and put a little on there, such as we can. Try to insulate it a little bit. As you finish the shelter up, it's important to have bungee cords on the outside lid. I used an 18-inch and a 24-inch bungee cord. The 24 is the red, the 18 is the orange. We also put a rubber band around, that's the little foil windscreen or little interior door right there. We fasten it to the awning just for a short time because it can confuse or discourage animals from going in. This way the door is wide open and they feel a little more secure going in and out. Once they're used to going in and out, you can take the rubber band off and then it ought to work out fine. This little bit of straw that sticks out, you can just come in with some scissors, trim that up. I'll get up a little tighter on that when I can use both hands. You get the idea. That'll clean it up, make it look nice, especially if you're going to have it up near your home. Well, the cat shelters are all finished now. This is our setup. We put this dog kibble out in fresh water with a little heater in the bowl. We have possums, skunks, raccoons, various little wild critters that come up here every night and chow down. And
Sometimes they'll go in these little shelters and snooze for a while. The possums especially seem to love these shelters. A couple of these possums we have are enormous. I've never seen possums so big. But we really enjoy that. We think that the critters enjoy it too. So I hope that these shelters will give you some ideas. Appreciate you stopping by to watch this video. I will have some affiliate links in the description to some of these products and tools and things we used on this project. This is John from fixitforgetit.com. We'll see you in the next video.